Hey folks, thanks for watching my monologue. I'd like to encourage you to visit Guns Etc. They're strong supporters of our president and the principles our country was founded upon. Guns Etc. is 10,200 square feet and it's a firearm lover's paradise. And for all your online firearms needs, just click on gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks. Well, welcome back. Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. It's always interesting to me what is said and when and what it's cued in on. I recall an old essay from Jim Hoagland once. He late of the Washington Post. He wrote that knowledge is not important when something is revealed or initially taught. It's important when it becomes relevant. One might add, when it gets absorbed. This is why I and others like to say repetition is the essence of pedagogy. You know how this works in other parts of your life. How many times have you heard, say, an advertisement? You kind of let it wash over you, and then one day, for whatever reason, you pay more attention and understand or get what the product or company actually is. Well, we had that yesterday. I signed off with a line from C.S. Lewis, his essay that's getting a lot of attention lately from 1948 on how to live in an atomic age. Many of you know or have heard the most quoted part. It reads, quote, "In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I'm tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed as you are already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented, and quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. We had, indeed, one very great advantage over our ancestors, anesthetics, but we have that still. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. He went on, this is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we're going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let the bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things, praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. A microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds, close quote. That's the one that's been going around. But yesterday I quoted from the end of that essay, a different or lesser repeated part, saying what it was and got all kinds of responses as to, what was that you quoted? Who said that? What did that mean? Where was that from? Let me do it again here and with some more context. Because, as usual, C.S. Lewis gets the timelessness of human nature and thus truth. A truth forgotten, perhaps, but a truth or series of truths nonetheless. In the rest of that essay, he would write, quote, "But your reply is not death, not even painful and premature death we are bothering about. Of course, the chance of that is not new. What is new is the atomic bomb, or we might say what is new is the China virus. This brings us nearer to the real point," Lewis writes. What were your views about the future of civilization before the invention of the atomic bomb or virus? What did you think all this effort of humanity was about in the end? The whole answer is known. Nature is a sinking ship. If nature, and he capitalizes the word nature, capitalizes it because it's a special thing. If nature is all that exists, in other words, if there is no God and no life of some quite different sort somewhere outside of nature, then all stories will end the same way. Now bear with me, you're going to see the relevance here, but if you need a hint, think about the Green New Deal and those who make environmental concerns the primary concerns over human life and quality of life. Now Lewis fires it up here, continuing, quote, "All life will end in the same way. In a universe from which all life is banished without a possibility of return. What the bomb has done, or the virus if you like, is waked us from a pretty dream, and now we can begin to talk about realities," close quote. He goes on, quote, "The important question is not whether an atomic bomb or virus is going to obliterate such civilization. The important question is whether nature is the only thing in existence. He goes on from here, but let me cut to his chases. If nature is the only thing that exists, there are really only three options. One, you might commit suicide. I won't belabor this point, but his point is, what is the point of life if all that is there is nature? Two, you might decide to have as good a time as possible. The universe is a universe of nonsense, but since you're here, grab what you can. Unfortunately, however, there is on these terms so very little left to grab. Only the coarsest sensual pleasures. You can't accept in the lowest animal sense. Be in love with a girl if you know, and keep on remembering that all the beauties both of her person and of her character are a momentary and accidental pattern produced by the collision of atoms, and that your own response to them is only a sort of psychic phosphorescence arising from the behavior of your genes. You can't go on getting any very serious pleasure from music if you know and remember that its air of significance is pure illusion, that you like it only because your nervous system is irrationally conditioned to like it. You may still, in the lowest sense, have a good time, but just insofar as it becomes very good, just insofar as it ever threatens to push you on from cold sensuality into real warmth and enthusiasm and joy, so afar you will be forced to feel the hopeless disharmony between your own emotions and the universe in which you really live, close quote. See, not great? Now the real chase. There's option 3. You may defy the universe. You may say, let it be irrational. I'm not. Let it be merciless. I will have mercy. But whatever curious chance has produced me, now that I am here, I'll live in accord to human values. I know the universe will win in the end, but what is that to me? I will go down fighting. Amid all this wastefulness, I will persevere. Amid all this competition, I will make sacrifices. Be damned to the universe. I suppose that most of us, in fact, while we remain materialists, adopt a more or less uneasy alternation between the second and the third attitude. And although the third is incomparably better, it is, for instance, much more likely to preserve civilization. Both really shipwreck on the same rock. This option seems to avoid the rock by accepting disharmony from the outset and defying it, but it will not really work. In it, you hold up our own human standards against the idiocy of the universe. So his final conclusion and lesson, and keep in mind this when you think of the religion the Greta Thunbergs and the AOCs spew, and those who have issued the most dire of predictions with the China virus. He concludes, quote, we must go back to a much earlier view. We must simply accept it, that we are spirits, free and rational beings, at present inhabiting an irrational universe, and must draw the conclusion that we are not derived from it. We are strangers here. We come from somewhere else. Nature is not the only thing that exists. There is another world, and that is where we come from. And that explains why we do not feel at home here. A fish may feel at home in the water. If we belonged here, we should feel at home here. All that we say about nature, about death and time and mutability, all our half-amused, half-bashful attitudes to our own bodies, it's quite inexplicable on the theory that we are simply natural creatures. If this world is the only world, how did we come to find its laws either so dreadful or so comic? If there is no straight line elsewhere, how did we discover that nature's line is crooked? It is our business to live by our own law, not by nature, to follow, in private or in public life, the laws of love and temperance, even when they seem to be suicidal, and not the law of competition and grab, even when they seem to be necessary to our own survival. For it is part of our spiritual law never to put survival first, not even the survival of our species. We must resolutely train ourselves to feel that the survival of man on this earth, much more of our own nation or culture or class, is not worth having unless it can be had by honorable and merciful means. The sacrifice is not so great as it seems. Nothing is more likely to destroy a species or a nation than a determination to survive at all costs. Those who care for something else more than civilization are the only people by whom civilization is at all likely to be preserved. Those who want heaven most have served earth best. Those who love man less than God do most for man. Got it? Those who claim to work in the name of humanity rather than something larger, they end up doing less for man than those who honor God first, something higher than humanity. And then they do most for it. So can we get this message to Washington, to the media? Honestly, you want to build a bill of bailout to save the environment? To work on gas emissions and labor unions? And yes, as Nancy Pelosi put in her bill, $35 million for the Kennedy Center? You read that right, the Kennedy Center. I'm sorry, artists can wait. We're trying to do the most for man, and I can't tell my fellow man, say my favorite busboy or waiter at my favorite restaurant here, sorry, you do without for a while. We have to give $35 million to the Kennedy Center. Hey, Nancy, how about giving him 0.0142% of that and make him whole instead? You know what else is in her bill? A nationwide mandate for ballot harvesting, $300 million for foreign refugees abroad, an automatic visa extension for all foreigners, an expansion of foreign language ballots, same-day voter registration for 2020 presidential elections, and an amnesty for nearly 800,000 DACA illegal aliens, $1 billion in bailouts for sanctuary cities. So much more to discuss on this, from the truly sublime to the ridiculous. That's how we started not only our country, but also the idea behind our bailout. It started serious. In the hands of the progressives, it became ridiculous. Our task is to reclaim it, and reclaim it we shall. I'm Seth Leibsohn. We'll be right back.